Hi everybody, and welcome to my video introducing the Holga 120S. This is a medium format viewfinder camera. So it takes 120 size film. Whoa. 120 film, which is a little bit bigger than a 35mm that many of us are familiar with. And that also means that it takes larger images, which don't have to be enlarged as much, so even though this is a fairly low-res camera, the results can still be intriguing. Not sharp, to be fair, but they definitely have mood and character. It has no light meter, a single shutter speed, which is somewhere in the 1/100th vicinity, and the flash syncs. This camera has an actual flash in it, and that syncs at the 1 shutter speed. This is targeted towards entry-level users and developing markets. It's a very inexpensive camera. This is not meant to be derisive, but it is very cheaply made. They are often filled with light leaks, and they're entirely made of plastic except for a handful of metal components in the shutter and in the hot shoe. Even the lens on most of these is plastic. There were some that had glass lenses, but mostly you're going to find these with plastic. So these were made by Holga Camera from 1981, and I could not find for the life of me when the 120S was discontinued, but it was discontinued at some point. And so you can still find these on the used market, and they were superseded by other cameras. The Holgas themselves are still being made, and they were made in China, technically Hong Kong up until, I believe Hong Kong, up until 1997, but now part of China. They were preceded by, the Holga, the 120S didn't have a predecessor. This was the first Holga model. It was, perhaps it could be argued, inspired by the Diana, which was made in Hong Kong in the 1960s. And the Diana itself had its roots in another Hong Kong camera made in the 40s and 50s, the name of which escapes me right now. This is concurrent with many, many other Holga models. The 120 had a very, very long production life, and so they were made with many of the other Holga models which are in existence. It was followed and improved upon by the 120N and 120SF, though I couldn't find out for sure whether or not either of those directly replaced this camera. So now if you have your Holga, go ahead and grab it. We're going to take a look at the top, front, back, sides, and bottom, and inside, and see what everything is. So here's the top of the Holga 120S, and it has very little. Hot shoe with X sync, even though the X is not marked on there. And film advance knob with double exposure prevention. On the front, we have the lens, and it's an optical lens, which for photography is better than perhaps a sand lens, but geology humor. And we also have the shutter release, which is over here. And this is the button that we push to activate the shutter. And as you can hear, there's no double exposure prevention on this. You can go clicking away and make double exposures till your heart's content with this camera. It also has the viewfinder window up here, and that is the window that you would look through from behind the camera to see what type of what your image is kind of going to look like. We have the focusing helicoil, which is a very, very fancy term for being able to focus your lens from portrait to group shot to small group shot to large group shot to landscape. There we go. Man. Okay, and there is one last thing on the front of the camera that we need to look at, and that is the aperture selector, which is right here, flash and daylight, and that selects between I want to say it's F8 and 11. Anyway, I have it written down later in the thing. Yeah, it's between F8 and 11. So, on the back we have the frame counter here, and it's a little confusing. This camera came with a 6x4, 4.5 insert, so it could either shoot 12 6x6 images or 16 6x4.5 images. And the arrow points to what it's set at. It's not where the red window is, that's what it's set at. So right now, it will take 12 6x6 images. I haven't actually been able to get this to adjust on mine, but if I could slide it up, it would then take, it would point to the 16, and then the red window would be open down here, and it would take 16 6x4.5 images. On the sides here, we have the camera strap lugs / film back locks. Oh, on the bottom, really quickly, what we have is nothing. There's nothing at all on the bottom, except that past QC sticker. So here's the inside of the camera. So over here we have the film chamber. This is where your new film goes into the camera. Let's lighten this up a little bit. And so you put your new film over here. Here's your camera obscura, which is where the light comes through the shutter, which you can see right there in the front. And the film is exposed here. And then over here is your film take-up area. So when you advance the film, it gets taken up over here. New film spans over here, gets taken up, and as this rolls the film up, it pulls the film off of here. Now, as you can see, there is not a whole lot in this that keeps the film flat or does anything to preserve quality of the image. So these are used really for people looking to obtain a mood to an image more than pin-sharp professional results. The shutter itself, there we go. So you can see about 1/100th. So in flash mode, like it is right now, the aperture is circular, and in daylight mode, that's when it's got the squareness to it. And so rather than putting in a disc which actually made the aperture smaller, they just slide something into place which blocks part of the image. And so it won't give you a dark spot on your image to use daylight or anything like that. What it will do is maybe give your out of focus areas a slightly weird sort of shape to them. But that's okay, because that's kind of the point with the Holga. So let's talk a little bit about focusing this guy. And we're going to start close. Here is the closest setting, which is portrait. And on the portrait setting, the focus is around 3 feet, give or take. On the group setting, then your focus is around 9 feet. Now what those mean is that on the portrait setting, if you want to take a portrait of somebody, you want to step 3 feet back from them. And if you want to take a picture of your mom, dad, and sister or whatever, you want to stand about 9 feet away from them. And if you want to take a picture of all your classmates or your colleagues or something in this, which is the group setting, then you want to stand about 18 feet away from them. And if you want to take a picture of a mountain off in the distance, in this case, you just need to be more than 30 feet from the mountain, which shouldn't be an issue if you're putting a mountain in the entire frame. But if you're shooting down an alleyway, let's say, at a delivery truck that's on the other side of the alley, as long as it's about 30 feet away, then you would want to just use the mountain setting, for example. So infinity is not just for things which are miles and miles away, therefore things which are 30 feet or greater away. Now, the aperture, as we talked about, has 2 settings, f8 and f11. They're changed by this switch on the top for flash or sunny mode. Film loading, let's talk about loading the film. So I said this takes 120 film, so we're going to slide these locks down. I'm going to take off the film back. Now, to load the film, you want to start by taking the last roll's reel out of the chamber, or the spool out of that chamber, and dropping it into the new chamber, the film take-up chamber. and aligning it so that the slit is upright. Now here's our new rule. This, spoiler alert, is not actual film, it's just paper backing on a spool. And it can be a little bit tricky to get in sometimes. But not this time, because this camera's showing off for the camera. Okay, and now you want to pull out the leader. Oh my gosh, really? Come on. Pull out the leader. There we go. Okay, pull out the leader and run it over, put the leader into the take-up spool like that. And start turning. Make sure as it goes that your paper is lined up within the spool. And so now in most cameras it would go like this. It would be very flat on the camera's film plane. Alright, we're going to stop with the arrow right there. But you can see with this one, not so much. So it's going to be unpredictable areas of image blur. So normally this is the point at which you would put your film back on. What I'm going to do is I'm going to advance this for a little bit so you can see the process of the advancing. So that's the double arrow that we just saw. This, as I said, this is set to take 12 6x6 exposures. So you want to make sure if you have it set to 12 that you do not have a 645 slide in here that blocks out some of the image. I don't even have one of those, or else I'd show you how to do it. So here's an arrow. This lets you know that you're almost to the first frame. And here are some dots letting you know you're getting very, very close. And there we go. There's a 1. So with the film back on, this camera actually does a fairly decent job of keeping the film flat. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what this would look like without the film back on, so you can see the process that's going on inside. So here we're inside the camera. This is the one that we were just looking at through the red window. Now, if we'd had the thing slid up so that we were going to take 16 frames, we would have advanced till we got to this one. And you can see with 16 frames already, the 6x4.5, 2 frames before we're even at the second frame for the 6x6. So you take your picture, and it's going to turn out wonderfully, and so you advance until ... circles or whatever other symbol there are, until you get to the second frame when that shows up in the red window. And then the nice thing about this is because this has a gear in it, you can't go backwards. That helps provide a little bit of tension for the film to keep it flat, but it also prevents it from respooling onto this, because if these have sat for a while, they develop memory, like fishing line and springs and babies. And so they develop the memory, and if there's nothing here to keep it from coiling backwards, then that will pull the film backwards and cause you to get overlapping exposures. So you take your pictures as you're going through, and again looking at the middle row of numbers as being the ones that we're taking as we go. And you will end up taking 12 6x6 frames. So there we go, we'd be on the last frame. Now we'd take the last image, when we'd start advancing, we'd see this black bar come through. No matter how it's set up, you'd see the black bar. And then another black bar. And that's the sound it makes to let you know that you're done. Once you open up the film back again, here we go. Come on, there we go. Just take the film out, and actual film would have some kind of sticky stuff on it to allow you to tape it shut. You just tape it shut and either develop it yourself or take it off to be developed. And then you can take this spool out and transfer it over to this side. And again, the way to insert it is you try to get it lined up as best you can, without looking like a fool on your YouTube video. There we go. And almost there. And then you just turn this knob until everything lines up and it falls into place. And then you either load more film right then, or wait until you are going to use your camera again to load more film. Now, one thing to bear in mind with this camera is that this one, at least, the film locks come up either way. At least this one does. So if your film locks slide up like that, you do not really want to use the strap lug. because the only logical outcome is that these will pop up, your camera will fall to the ground, the back will fly off, your film will shoot out the camera's back like some kind of pissed off snake, and all of your images will be ruined. So the hot shoe up here on the top has an X sync, and it will work with any modern electronic flash that you would pick up for it. And it syncs at the 1 shutter speed, which is about 1/100th. But these, I won't lie, these have unreliable shutter speeds, so we can hope that that's the actual sync speed. I'm sure that whatever you do with flashes, you're going to get interesting results. So, some notes and final thoughts on this camera. Holgas have this following, and I won't lie, I did not understand why. It takes these vignetted, low-resolution, fuzzy pictures. There's light leaks that you gotta wrap them in tape sometimes to make them not leak light. They're just kind of cheesy. I didn't get it. And then I used this camera, and I get it. I understand the charm of something that allows you to spend time thinking about what you want to take the picture of and not worry about, oh, what's my shutter speed and aperture, and which mode am I in, and oh, there's this dial here, what's this dial do? Is it even, am I supposed to use this dial? I don't know, it's a dial. And so it's got a lightweight plastic body, you don't even know it's there. And it's got plastic optics, and you get all kinds of weird things going on in the images because of that. But it's simple, and it's fun to use, and it's lightweight, and it gives the user the ability to reconnect directly with the image without any of that interference that comes with all of the stuff that they put onto cameras. Also, these are readily modifiable, and why not go for it? They're really inexpensive. There's an entire website, a guy out there who's living, apparently, as far as I can tell, is modifying Holga cameras. And come up with your own thing to do. Why not? Why not try doing a few experiments and fun, exciting things with your Holga? And even though they're silly and lightweight and by any empirical measure very cheaply and poorly made, they are still capable of taking evocative and compelling photos. And yeah, I get it. I get the Holga. So a few don'ts with your camera. Don't touch the shutter. I mean, honestly, it's a pretty simple mechanical shutter. It's not like one of these complex leaf or focal plane shutters. And if you touched it, it would not be the end of the world. But you could still brick your camera. There's no mirror to touch. Why did I leave that in the video? I don't know. Don't leave your camera in your car because you can get heat damage. So even though there really aren't any oils or anything like that to get into places and muck up the works, you can still do some serious damage to your camera with heat. You can warp the plastic, and that will absolutely ruin your camera. Don't store your camera in a plastic bag or box because you can still get fungus on the optics, and though it's not as bad as if you were using a $5,000 large format lens or something, it's still not something you want to have. And don't let your camera get wet because you can short out or ruin the flash interface, and then you will just have a Holga 120S with no flash. And your camera is a precision, and so your camera is a precision tool and should be handled with care and respect. And as long as you do that, then your camera is going to do right by you. And these have a following for a reason. So if this video was helpful, please leave me a thumbs up. That lets me know I'm on the right track and that I'm producing content which is helpful to you guys. If you have any questions or comments, please leave those in the comments section below. I'm pretty good about responding fairly quickly, especially if you catch me when I'm online. If you have any suggestions for future videos, please let me know, and if I have the equipment and technical know-how, I'm more than happy to film those for you. And one last thing, thank you guys for watching. Even so, the arrow is set to 12, meaning that the Hannah, Cheever, leave the damn squirrel alone. Here we have the... I didn't write this part of the script.